I had heard of an upper limit before I actually arrived at mine. But then, when I experienced it for myself, I was actually quite surprised. Firstly, surprised that I was experiencing it for myself, and secondly, surprised at how devious my mind is. Hello and welcome to the Stylish Wellness Podcast. I'm Sarah Banks, your guide to mastering personal style and authority. I've built a successful couture business designing handmade wedding dresses and bespoke occasion wear for women who value elegance and individuality. Now I bring that expertise to help ambitious women like you step into your confidence, express your unique style, and make an impact, starting with the clothes you wear. If you're ready to elevate your wardrobe, your mindset, and your presence, you're in the right place. Let's create a life and a style that truly reflects the remarkable woman you are. Hello, amazing women, and welcome to this week's podcast. Today, I'm talking about all things upper limit. I don't know if you are familiar with this idea. You may well be. I was definitely familiar with it, but as a theoretical term rather than a practical experience. So when I experienced it for myself, it caught me out. I didn't know what was going on. I needed to reset, to take a step back, get the lie of the land, so to speak, and then regroup. To rewind for one moment, the upper limit or ceiling is this idea that we all have or might have an upper limit, which is the highest value that we would place on ourselves. And I think one of the core ideas is that quite often your upper limit is subconscious, so you are not really aware of it. However, regardless of the fact that it is subconscious, it is still, if not running the show, very much playing a leading role. So when I say that it's this idea that we might have an upper limit, which is the highest value that we would place on ourselves, what I mean is that in mostly all our areas of life, but certainly our most important areas of life, like with our work or with the idea of our life partner or families or, those big sort of buckets of life kind of thing, that we have an idea of the highest value that we would place on ourselves for that. So that would be in terms of who is the best person that I could marry, for example. Who do I think is equal to me in terms of being married? And when I live in a house or a flat or wherever I want to live, what is the best place that I would actually really like to live? Not in terms of, in my dreams, I'd love to go and live here and have this size house or whatever. But what do we realistically think our expectations are for our own life? That's what I'm talking about when I say highest value. So another very concrete example could be the amount of money that you earn. So you might think subconsciously that the most, or otherwise you might think it quite consciously, that the most money you could earn in a year might be $100,000 or $500,000 or $50,000. The amount really is irrelevant. What is relevant is that whatever your belief is, you will conform to that belief. And as I've just said, you can have upper limits in all parts of your life. Your clothes, for example. You might, for example, have an upper limit on how much you would spend on one item of clothing. Now, that's an interesting one because you often find a conflict with that upper limit when you find a piece of clothing that you absolutely love, but which exceeds your upper limit belief on how much you should spend on a single item of clothing. And you'll say something to a friend like, oh, I've seen this absolutely amazing dress in such and such boutique and I was absolutely love it and it looks great on me, but it's really much more than I would normally spend on an item of clothing. Now, you might tell your friend how much that dress is. I don't know, say it's $400, right? And she might not bat an eyelid. That's not her upper limit. She'll just say to you, oh, you should definitely buy it. But that's not going to help you in the moment because your upper limit belief is that you shouldn't spend more than, say, $300 on one item of clothing. You can also have an upper limit on how good you look. You might think that you can look this good, where this is the amount of toned body, this amount of weight, this amount of how good you look in clothes. But you might not think that you deserve, in inverted commas, to look better than that. Your mentality might be this good and no more. It's like you're saying, I think I deserve to enjoy or experience life to this level, but no more. And of course, this level might be a high level. Your upper ceiling on how good you think you should look might be really high. But what I'm talking about is, as you can tell from the way I'm approaching this podcast, I'm not talking about when your ceiling is really high. I'm actually talking about when it's lower than perhaps it needs to be. So with looking good, maybe that you just worry that you couldn't maintain that level of looking good, couldn't maintain the healthy diet required or exercise routine required to look that level of good. Maybe you just don't think that you have it in you, either because you're not capable of that level of commitment to yourself, or that you don't have the time right now in your life. But actually, this is exactly what happened to me. And as I said, it really surprised me. So this year, as part of developing the authority experience and also diving deeper into some of my other work, I have reassessed or been in the process of reassessing some areas of my life. And one of those areas is my diet, another is my work, another is my level of wellness, making sure that I maintain my wellness and make it a priority. And with the wellness comes the exercise routine that I have, or sometimes don't have, and struggle to maintain when I am really busy. And what I'm doing when I do this work on myself is making sure that the work I'm doing is realistic, that when I recommend you do things or try things or change your style, that I'm doing it from a realistic perspective rather than a theoretical approach. And so currently with the work I'm doing on my diet, for example, my diet is a good example of the upper limit. I have various criteria for my eating habits and how I want to look and show up each day. A while ago, I noticed that what felt like self-sabotage was coming into play. I didn't really notice it at first. So I was feeling really well and my health was good and my diet healthy, all those things. And I started to do things that I said that I wouldn't do because they don't make me feel well. For example, there were some croissants and I had croissants for breakfast. And that's no biggie. But I had decided that I really didn't like that type of croissant and that I'd rather wait until I was at a really great baker or pâtissier and buy a really amazing full-on buttery, preferably almond croissant. But I found myself eating the ones that I didn't really like. Then I noticed that I was starting to eat some of the foods that I have discovered don't really help me to look and feel my best. At first, I thought I was just doing it out of curiosity, oh, I wonder how I'll feel if I eat that food kind of thing. Then I noticed that I was taking larger portions of food or having an extra portion of salad dressing, for example. So these things, they're not big things in themselves. However, over time, say a few weeks, it does mean that the new parameters I have set for my life are actually being gradually replaced by the old parameters I used to have and which I intentionally put aside in order to step into the next level version of myself. And then the penny dropped. Oh, I should say at this point that my example is about food, but it could be about anything. I don't want to make this podcast food-centric and make you feel bad about what you eat. I don't think we should feel bad about what we eat. And I think as women, we have enough negativity around food and food choices. It just happens that where I noticed this upper limit for myself was with food. I'll come on to clothes in a moment because we often have an upper limit for the clothes we wear. But in my example, it wasn't the clothes because I had already made the changes in my diet and exercise. And so I was actually feeling really good and looking really great in my clothes. So for this purposes, for the podcast, the example is food, but it could be anything. So then the penny dropped. I can't remember what made me realise that it was an upper limit problem. Oh yes, I remember now. I asked myself why I was doing what I was doing. I thought it might be because I had got bored of eating a lot of salad, but it wasn't really that I was bored of the food. It was that I didn't think it was sustainable when I thought about it. When I asked myself what I was doing, I realised that I didn't think it was sustainable. And when I realised that I didn't think what I was doing was sustainable, I sort of did like a 180-degree turn in on my brain and looked back and saw my behaviour as a way of sabotaging my progress. So what I didn't think was sustainable was to continue in this lovely, healthy way of eating that has done me so much good. To decide not to drink alcohol for a certain period of time, for example, to change my style, to take a step up in my business and become an authority in my work. And my brain was scared. Of course, brains always think you're going to die when you step out of your normal routine and develop a new way of doing things. I just didn't realise that this was going to happen to me. It was such a shock. But then I understood why I sat and ate cheddar cheese one evening and had toast for supper. And I should say toast butter Marmite and then toast butter peanut butter, which are definitely my comfort foods, but they're not nutritionally healthy, really, are they? I mean, you could make an argument for the peanut butter and you could perhaps make an argument for the bread that I had, which was really healthy. But if you want to maintain a really good level of weight and feel really good about yourself, you probably don't want to eat cheddar cheese and toast with butter and Marmite and toast with butter and peanut butter. But it all made sense. It was all the more shocking, though, because I didn't see it coming. I thought I had just made these changes to my life and that there would be no backlash, that it would all be plain sailing. I couldn't imagine that my own brain, my sneaky brain, or my subconscious would decide that what I was doing was unsafe in any way. My brain, or my subconscious brain, had reached its upper limit, its ceiling. As far as it was concerned, I could go no further. I was looking good, feeling good, creating new work, expanding my business, but I couldn't go any further than that. And actually, probably my brain thought that I'd probably gone too far. And that's why it was trying to rein me in. It was saying, come back to this comfort food. This is where you belong. You don't belong with all these lovely salads that you're really enjoying. You won't enjoy them forever. You won't love the stir fries forever. Who wants to eat veggies forever? That kind of thing, it's quite interesting, like looking back on it. But at the time I was confused. I was thinking, why am I eating this food? It's really bizarre. So it has been very interesting because now, of course, the work is to overcome that, to actively dismantle that ceiling, that upper limit. And how to go about it is really interesting because if I just set a goal, I might not achieve it if I don't believe it. For example, if I set a goal to earn a certain amount of money in my business, if I don't believe that goal, I won't achieve it. So I need to be in the business of believing the goal. I've gone as far as I can with my previous goal beliefs, and now I'm in new territory and I need new goals to believe in. Now, to bring this back to the work that I do, I have seen over time women who used to come to me as clients, who have an upper limit. And when I was designing for my couture clients, part of my work involved me encouraging women to look their best in what I was designing for them and to take a bold step or to try a different style. And if you want to take a step into a more authoritative version of yourself, whether you're taking a step up into a new role at work or you just want to become a more developed version of yourself, part of that work of being more authoritative is being a more expansive version of yourself. And you'll expand, but then at some point you won't expand anymore. That will be your upper limit, your ceiling. I see it with style a lot. For example, I'll make up a story here using an amalgamation of women I know, clients I've served, and you might recognize yourself in this story. There's this woman. She's already elegant, smart, put together. She knows how to dress for the life she has. But deep down, she suspects she's not dressing for the life she wants. She walks into her closet and sees safe choices, the good enough wardrobe. It works, it fits, but it doesn't move her, not anymore. Every now and then, she flirts with something bolder. A dramatic coat, a red lipstick, an expensive bag, a look that says, "I'm not here to please you, I'm here to be seen." But the moment she tries it on, an invisible ceiling drops down. A thought like, "Who do I think I am? People will stare. That's not really me." That's for women who've already arrived. And so she carefully tucks her power away. She presses the elevator button for the middle floor, even though the penthouse is calling. And I'll be referring back to middle floor and penthouse shortly. So in this story, what's happening psychologically? Firstly, there is a self-concept lag. Her style hasn't caught up to her internal growth. She's become more, or she wants to become more, but she's still dressing like the woman she used to be with the values that she used to have. And of course, there is nothing wrong with that woman. But if you want to grow and develop, it's a bit like shedding your outer skin to grow into the new you. You have to shed skin or remove clothes. But that's a nicer analogy. Your clothes no longer fit you when you want to grow. Secondly, there is an element of fear of disapproval. A bolder look means standing out, being judged, being misunderstood perhaps. It's an emotional risk. We all fear disapproval. Certainly our brains do. Well, most of us fear disapproval. You can move on from disapproval, but it's a very basic emotion. We don't want to experience disapproval because in historic terms that meant a potential alienation from the tribe, and being cast out from the tribe could or would mean death because our survival rate on our own would be so much lower. So this fear of disapproval is actually a very sort of primeval element in our bodies. It's a primeval emotion, and our prefrontal cortex, like the forward-thinking, strategic part of our brain, can overcome disapproval, but we actively have to recognize it in order to be able to deal with it. Thirdly, there's an identity dissonance. So our heroine in this story thinks dressing powerfully is performative instead of authentic. In other words, she thinks that dressing powerfully is an external action, not an internal action. She thinks that putting on clothes to look bigger and better is all about impressing other people or showing other people that you have power. She, our heroine, doesn't yet realise that it's an inner game, that if you want to grow into power and authority, then dressing the part is such a big percentage of the step to get there. And I think associated with the identity dissonance and this idea that dressing powerfully is performative rather than authentic would come this idea of imposter syndrome. Because imposter syndrome is this idea that who you look like isn't who you really are, that you're being an imposter. And this is when what you do, you perceive that what you're doing is performative rather than authentic. And if you can come back to the authentic you will see that you could partly ignore what it is to feel that you have imposter syndrome and just go straight for the much more basic emotion of just straightforward fear and deal with that by being authentic. Anyway, that's for another time. But the number 3 here is identity dissonance, which is identifying dressing powerfully as performative rather than authentic. And fourthly, scarcity mindset. Our heroine will be thinking thoughts like, that look is for other women, the ones who already have money, confidence, freedom. I need to earn it first. So, what is it that our heroine needs. She needs permission to expand her self-expression without apologizing. Actually, I think I should reframe that. She doesn't need permission to do anything. She needs to understand that she already has permission to expand her self-expression without apologizing. She needs a reframe. Style isn't pretending, it's activating. Authentic, not performative. She needs to embody her future identity now rather than waiting until she hits some imaginary milestone. And she needs a daily reminder that the clothes don't make you the woman. You choose the clothes because you already are her. Now, this work that I'm talking to you about, this is a very strong thread of work, and it's a very important part of women stepping up each day. And that is why I've included it into the authority experience. The way that I have included it is as an elevation map. It's a visual and mental roadmap with the different floors in the elevation representing progress in life. So we look at the different levels and identify where you feel stuck on a certain floor. And then we look at the floor above and see what it is that you might fear, which is leading you to stay on the floor below. Because it's always the next step that is keeping you under the ceiling. So, for example, if we were going to work together and you were conscious of the fact that you are being kept under your ceiling, or that you're being limited by this upper limit idea, then we would look at the various stages of your life and where you feel you are and where you feel you might be a bit stuck. And then we'll look at the next stage above that and see what it is there that might be keeping you stuck in your upper limit, underneath your upper ceiling limit. So it could be something like, if you came to work with me and we were discussing the fact that you want to, say, for example, change careers, or you're not working right now and you want to go back and work in the workplace, or you want a big promotion, or you're about to start your business. And we'll look at ways in which you feel like you're not currently stepping up, or where you feel unease or dis-ease in whatever way. Those are sort of signs that you're pushing against that ceiling in some way. Then we'll look at the step above it. So, for example, if you are planning on running a business, but you haven't actually started, and you're wondering why you actually haven't started, then we'll look at the reasons why you haven't started, because actually what you're doing by not starting is avoiding something. And we'll look at what you're avoiding and then try and release it. And how we do it is, well, we look at what you're doing and how you're doing it. That's partly how we release it. But as always with me, it comes back to style and clothing. So we look at ways in which you can empower yourself now that would be authentic and true to the problem that we have identified and how you're going to solve it. So what we do essentially is use your personal style and your clothes to give you that confidence, and for you to step into the person, the woman that wears those clothes, the woman that has that authority. And then that's how you will beat that ceiling. That's how you will get to the new floor. So when I was saying earlier about you have to believe your new goal, we use your clothes and your style and your routines and your habits as a way to believe your new goal. That's how you believe harder. That's how you believe harder in yourself, is because you see yourself taking action as that person. So I think it was the last episode where we're talking about self-perception theory, you're actually looking at yourself wearing those clothes, stepping out each day as that woman, and then the self-perception theory sees you from the exterior. It sees you as the woman who is acting like the woman who is starting her own business, and your brain will actually believe that. So that's one good thing about the brain. I mean, it might be a bit sneaky, as I have discovered just recently, but there are ways around it, and there are ways of sort of treating your brain and encouraging your brain to believe new things. And what we want to do is to encourage your brain to do and believe new things, but to do it in a way that your brain trusts you. Because if your brain doesn't trust you, and this is where it comes back to the belief, if you don't believe what it is that you want to do, your brain won't believe you are either. Your brain will not trust you for you to be able to do that work. We finish the exercise by looking at your top floor self, your penthouse self. Who is she? How does she dress? How does she make decisions? So what is your current ceiling? Do you know? Examples of ceilings in different domains can be things like, for example, your style. You would say something like, I could never wear that. With wellness, you could say something like, I've tried everything, my body just won't change. And with your identity, you could be saying something like, people like me don't do that. We all have ceilings of one form or another, but the lift or elevator to the next floor is always available, and the work in the authority experience will help you to take that lift to the next floor. As you know, as you might know, the authority experience is now open for enrollment. The authority experience is an amazing program which I coach on a one-on-one basis. If you want to take a step up in life, get a promotion, launch a business, whatever it is, I am here to help you get there. If you feel that you've hit a ceiling, or even if you view it as a roadblock, I can help you identify what is holding you back and then help you to put steps and protocols in place that will help you to lose the frustrations and setbacks which are currently preventing you from progress. The link to sign up, which is via a questionnaire, is in the show notes. I'm currently taking just a few students for enrolling in June, at the start of June. So if you'd like me to coach you in your authority, including this work of the elevation map, which will help you combat your ceiling, then fill the questionnaire in and I'll get back to you shortly. So, amazing women, that is what I have for you today. And how have you found it? How have you found this idea of hitting the ceiling or your upper limit? You might, of course, be familiar with this idea. There's a very good book by Jay Hendricks that I read a long time ago, actually. It's called The Big Leap. It's very good. That is exactly about this concept, although he doesn't talk about it in terms of style. He talks about it in terms of life and predominantly work. But it's a very good read if you want to read further around the subject. I'll put the link to his book in the show notes. And I think the other thing just to say on that is that we all suffer from it in one way or another. It's sort of part of our life, really. I just think that as we get better at identifying it, as I have been discovering, as we get better at identifying it, then each time we encounter that upper limit level, I think we're just that bit better at recognizing it and working out what we need to do. And it really is just a question of working out what we need to do to get to the next stage. And this is what I realized for myself when I realized what I was doing and that I was scuppering, and that actually it was really a question of that my brain didn't want me to go any further than I had already gone, because it feared what was coming next. It thought that I had far exceeded where I should be, even though I was taking quite small steps, and that we just need to coach ourselves, because of course our brain is part of ourself. I know I've talked about it a little bit tonight as if it's sort of an other outside of us, but our brain is us. It's just that we have to learn to manage ourselves and our brains. And the wonderful thing about the work that I do is this sort of body, mind, spirit connection, which links in with your clothes and how we can use clothes to encourage ourselves to step in and become this amazing next level version of ourselves. So I really hope that you have found that really helpful and that you are able to take something from that. If you are experiencing your own upper limit, ceiling right now, then I hope this has been useful to you in some way. If you'd like to come and have some coaching with me via the Authority Experience, then please fill out the questionnaire in the link, the show note link, and I will get right back to you. The questionnaire is really useful. It just has a few simple questions on there that really will give me an idea of where you are and what your expectations are in the broadest terms. So it's not really in depth. It's just a way that we can start the conversation together, which is just brilliant. So do please fill that questionnaire in, and I'll get back to you very shortly after that, and then we can take it further from there. In the meantime, amazing women, I hope you are well wherever you are, and I really look forward to seeing you same time, same place next week. Bye for now.